homesteading to prepping to common horse sense, we are College Hill Farm.
Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, today I want to respond to a few messages I received by instant messenger. For those of you who don't follow the channel, and I get a lot of new viewers that have never seen this channel before. My name's Joel. My wife's name's Crystal, and we homestead on a 9-acre homestead in central Kentucky. We grow most of our own food. We do buy food. We're not perfectly self-sustainable. There's no such animal. But we grow most of what we eat. We grow heirloom varieties that we can save seeds from and all that stuff. But what my topic is about today, I've had multiple sclerosis since 1997. I was diagnosed by my primary care physician in 1997, and they didn't find out for certain. There's a whole bunch of tests and all this stuff that you have to go through, and I didn't have a confirmed diagnosis. Excuse me. I didn't have a confirmed diagnosis until 2002, and I had a confirmed diagnosis of MS. Well, the last week I've got 3 messages in my inbox on Facebook. Now, we're on Facebook, College Hill Farm, and I'll put up the picture of our little logo so that you'll know that you're in the right spot. I don't mind a bit if you contact me and ask, and you're newly diagnosed with MS or something, and you contact me and you're just scared. It scared the crap out of me when my doctor told me. I'll never forget, I was having some symptoms. I was the director at the Harlan Technical College, and I was having some symptoms. I was numb. My right arm was numb, and all the way up into my face was numb, and I had a lot of pain in this jaw. So I went to my primary, and she tested me. She poked me with pins and all this stuff. I thought maybe I was having a stroke. I was, how old was I then? I was 36. My dad had just died, not 2 months prior. So that stress had triggered an MS attack. Stress has been my MS trigger for a long time. Anyway, so she told me, she said, well, I think you might have multiple sclerosis. It's like, wow, just a slap in the face. I think you might have multiple sclerosis. So she said, I want you to go see a neurologist. Well, the neurologist that we had in eastern Kentucky, doctors are transitory. They come for a few years and then they leave because there's more money other places. But they come for a few years and do whatever it is they came for, whatever reason they came, and then they move on. Well, the neurologist where I lived was getting ready to leave. He tried to do a spinal tap in his office, which he couldn't get successfully. I'm not a little man, so he didn't want to try again, and so he told me, he said, well, your symptoms have gone away, which my symptoms had stayed for about a week. And then they went away gradually, but they were already resolving by the time he tried the spinal tap and all that. And so he said, don't worry about it, it's probably nothing. He said, I'm leaving day after tomorrow, and it's probably nothing. But if you have the symptoms again, come back to your doctor and she'll find you another neurologist. So, okay, that's okay. So, long story short, in 2002, I got another neurologist, and there it was. So I want to address a couple things. I got a couple of instant messages, and I'm going to read one to you. All three of the ones that I've got this week are pretty much the same, so I'm going to read this one, and I'm not going to put any names on there. I have already responded to them, and we've talked, and I'm glad to talk to you if you've been newly diagnosed or if you're aging with MS. You know, this aging with MS is a different subject altogether, but let's talk about these newly diagnosed folks. Now, here's what it says. Joel, I have recently been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. The doctors don't tell me much. They said I should go online and do a search. They have told me that I could go to the National MS Society and gave me a couple of pamphlets. But I really don't understand exactly what's going to happen to me. I know that you have had MS for a long time. And could you give me a little insight about what's about to happen? I'm afraid that I'm going to wind up in a wheelchair. I'm actually scared to death. And they put their name, and so let's talk about that a little bit. You know, when I was first diagnosed, that was before the days of the internet. That was 1997. And I had one of those bag phones, cell phones. One of the very first cell phones in eastern Kentucky. And I had a bag phone, so I called Crystal when I got out of the doctor's office and told her that they think I have MS, and I don't know what we're going to do. I assumed everything that was on my mind was catheters and wheelchairs and, okay, terrified. Now, the internet was in its infancy. So we had something called dial-up internet, but the internet was in its infancy, and there wasn't all this information about MS on the internet at that time. All the internet had was a few pictures of people in wheelchairs or people who were blind from MS and some other stuff. So I got with the National MS Society, and they sent me a couple of books. And over the course of the next 5 years, I learned a little bit about MS. I didn't learn nothing in reality. Those books can't teach you nothing. Everybody's MS is going to be different. The reason it's going to be different is because your immune system is different. My immune system's not the same as yours. It's not the same as his. It's not the same as hers. Okay? They're all different. So, what were some of the things that happened to me? Well, after I got this symptom in my right arm, about that time, our college was merging with the community college system. And there was a whole lot of upheaval and a whole lot going on in my work system. So I was under a considerable amount of stress. Well, stress for me is an MS trigger. Okay? There is no evidence, scientific evidence, to prove that stress triggers an MS attack. But I'm here to tell you, every time I have gotten under severe stress, within 2 weeks I had an MS attack. I had something called relapsing remitting MS. There are people that have something called progressive MS, and that means they have an attack and it never goes away. Then they have another attack and another attack, and they never go away. And they get disabled pretty quick. And you have these like me. I have an attack, it goes away. I don't get all the function back that I had before the attack, but I get most of it back. That's called relapsing remitting. Now, I haven't had a real attack in 8 or 10 years. I assume I'm in secondary progressive. My neurologist retired, and I haven't fooled with getting another one because of the system I decided to do to manage my MS. So I, at this point, do not have a neurologist. I encourage everybody out there with MS to have a neurologist. Okay, don't do what I'm doing. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay. Anyway, I thought that everything was going to happen to me all at once. But it didn't happen that way. It happens in bouts. In 2002, I got a neurologist that would see me. And getting in to see a specialist, y'all know how hard that is. Sometimes you got to wait 2 or 3 months to get in to see somebody. So once you get a neurologist, if you're having an attack and he doesn't respond to you within 24 to 48 hours, you need to find another neurologist. Okay? It's just the way it is. Some of them are so busy that it's bad medicine. Anyway, I had relapsing remitting MS, and every time I had a stressful event, Dad died, and I had an MS attack. The college changed, and we merged with the community college system. They took us out of the state government system, put us into a community college system, and I had an attack. What was that attack? Well, my right leg didn't want to work. All it wanted to do was drag around. I had to go to a major meeting as the director of the Harlan Technical College to at that time we were called Harlan State Vocational Technical School, a state school, mainly focusing on adults, not high school students. We had high school students, but anyway, that don't matter. So I wound up having to go to a major meeting where a lot of policy decisions were going to be made, walking on a cane because I couldn't walk because my right leg didn't want to work. Then a little later on, we had some other things go on. I lost vision in my right eye. It wasn't that I completely lost vision, but can you imagine looking through a napkin, a white napkin, put over your face and looking through? You can see shapes and stuff, but you can't see anything. Well, it took me almost a month to get in to see the ophthalmologist, and by that time it was starting to resolve. And he diagnosed it as something called optic neuritis, which is caused by the MS. Matter of fact, for a lot of people, that's the very first symptom. They lose vision in one eye, or one eye gets real blurry. Okay, so common problem with MS patients. Right now, my number one problem is heat intolerance. When my body core temperature goes up, I get to where I can't feel my feet, and I become unstable, and it gives me fatigue. Super fatigue. So that's one of the things that happens. I can't bend over like I used to. That could be a lot of different reasons. My weight don't help nothing, okay? Weak legs are sure going to transport you better if you reduce the amount of weight you carry. That's just the way it is. My doctor could have told me that, but he didn't have to because I know it. It's a lot easier said than done. I'm very active. I've always been very active, and I've always been very big. So, there it is. So, there are a lot of things that can happen to you. I couldn't use my right arm once. No, it was my left arm. It's hard to remember. It was my left arm. I couldn't use my left arm and wound up having to put it in a sling for a while. Back then, there were 3 medications. Beta interferon, beta seron, and Copaxone. And the interferons were cancer drugs used to suppress the immune system and suppress cancer. So they used those to suppress your immune system and make it so that you could, that your body didn't attack your brain cells. Well, back then there was no other options, and it was an injection. I think beta interferon was I don't remember. I never took beta interferon, or they called it beta seron, or Avonex. I never took either one of those. They were both interferons. I took a drug called Copax-1. And what it did, it looked like myelin to the attacking cells, and it attacked the Copax instead of attacking the brain. And it reduced your number of lesions. Well, that was a daily injection, and I don't know if it was my MS that caused the problem, or if it was the Avonex that was causing the problem, or if it was some other drug that I might have been taking. I'm also a diabetic, so it may have been some of the other drugs that I was taking too, but it started causing me to have extreme anxiety. I mean, anxiety that I couldn't function because of it. And I wound up having to stop taking the Avonex, or the Copax-1. And it was about that time that I needed to give up the job that I was doing. I had 15, 20 active lesions at any one time by MRI. I was a college administrator, and sometimes my job was real stressful and sometimes it wasn't, but often it was very, very, very stressful. So I wound up talking to my boss, and he allowed me to go back to the classroom, go back and teach physics and hydraulics and pneumatics and flexible manufacturing systems and things like that. Blueprint reading, schematics. So that's what I did. I went back to the classroom, taught physics and stuff, and my stress level went through the roof, through the floor. The amount of stress I had went way down. Well, my lesion load went down to 7 or 8 lesions on MRI, active lesions. This was about 2008. And then in 2012, I had put in my 30 years required to be able to quit teaching, to be able to retire on the teacher's retirement system. So I made it without going out on disability. Not all MS patients can do that. They can make it without going out on disability. But I made it to where I didn't have to go out on disability. I got my regular retirement. So in 2013, I retired. In 2015, I had another MRI. 1 lesion. 1 active lesion. 2017, I had another MRI, one active lesion. So when my stress level went down, my lesion load plummeted. So I'm telling you, stress is a killer. If you've got MS, cut your stress. Cut your stress, cut your stress, cut your stress. It's just needs to happen. Now, am I going to get crippled? Well, I'm 60. Okay? My dad died at 67 and my mom died at 69. So, how long have I got? Well, I wasn't exposed to the same stuff they were. Okay? They lived in the days of asbestos, and Dad kept gasoline all over his hands and carbon tetrachloride for cleaning parts, and was exposed to all these carcinogens. And I'm not exposed to that. Both of them died of cancer. So I'm not exposed to that. My grandfather lived to be 77. My grandmother lived to be 94. Mom's mom lived to be 78. Mom's dad was shot when she was 4 years old, so I can't go by them. But my great-grandparents all lived to be in their 80s and 90s. Okay? So how long am I going to live? I don't know. I do the best I can for as long as I can. That's the way you have to approach MS. Do the best you can for as long as you can. Know your limitations. When I'm out in the field, like right now, it is, get off me, I got a fly back here chewing on me. When I'm out in the field, right now it's about 7:30 in the morning. I get out here at daylight because it's coolest in the morning. That's what the old timers did back in the day. They got out at daylight and they worked, and then they went in and had breakfast, and then they came back out and worked till noon and had lunch, and then they rested up. Then they came out in the late evening and worked. They tried to stay out of that 110 degree sun to do their gardening work. Well, I do the same thing. But if I mess up, let me give you an example. Let's say I'm out here hoeing my sweet potatoes, but I didn't get to start hoeing them until, say, 10 o'clock, and the sun's already full on the sweet potato row. And I'm hoeing, and I've got about half the row hoed, and it's already almost 80 degrees out here. And I keep hoeing all the way to the end, and by the time I get to the end, it's like 85 degrees. I'm lucky if I can walk back and get in my truck. Okay? Lucky if I can walk back and raise my leg and get in the truck. I drive back to the house, cool down. A lot of times I'll take my phone and text Crystal. She's always wanting to know, are you okay, or where you at, what are you doing? I'll get back in the truck, turn the air conditioning on, turn the air conditioning on, and take a cool down drive. I'll text her, taking a cool down drive. Because I fooled around and got too hot. For the next 4 days, I can't do nothing. I'm so fatigued I can't get out of the house. Okay? I know you see me do this stuff all the time on here. You see me doing this and you see me doing that, hoeing the potatoes or picking the beans or shucking corn or whatever, all these things that we do here on the homestead. I have to pick my times. Okay? It just can't be that I go out and can work and push through and everything's fine tomorrow. It don't work that way. Now, when I was diagnosed back in '97, there weren't very many treatments for MS like there are today. There are all kinds of treatments for multiple sclerosis today that weren't available to me. I advise you to get on one, okay? If you can delay the onset of disability, the longer you can delay it, the better you're going to be. But it's not the sentence it was, okay? When I was diagnosed, that was about the time that Richard Pryor was plumb down in the bed and in a wheelchair because of multiple sclerosis. You know, it's an odd thing for a black guy to get multiple sclerosis, but Richard Pryor had it, and there are a few other people out there, Annette Funicello and Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley, and I know you newly diagnosed people don't have any idea who these people are, but they were the folks that had MS that were out in the national spotlight at the time. Back then, about 50% of the folks diagnosed with multiple sclerosis wound up in a wheelchair. 50%. Now, with all the new drugs that they have, only about 10% of MS patients will actually wind up in a wheelchair. Does that mean you won't have some disability? Of course not. You're going to have it. I have some disabilities that are pretty well hidden. Back when I was teaching, the reason I quit teaching is because of one of my problems. And you'll hear it in this video. I stop and say, a lot. Okay? Why do I do that? I do that because I have something called scanning speech. It happens to MS patients, especially MS patients that have had MS for as long as I have. My speech, sometimes I can't think of words. Made it real hard as a physics professor to teach physics when I couldn't think of words like thermodynamics or Einstein or Bernoulli or, see, there I go. Can't think of another physics word that would come to mind, okay? Kinetics, all right? So when you think of these things, you're going to develop some disabilities. You might have to change your career or lateral your career or give up your career. There's no way of knowing, okay? Nobody knows. Your doctors don't know. It's all up to you. Let me tell you something. It's all up to you. All right? Your doctors are going to give you these things. They're going to say that you need to do this or you need to do that, or let me tell you something. You need to decide what's best for you. And if your doctor's not on board, get another doctor. Okay? I've had some crappy doctors, some crappy MS doctors. I found one that I really liked. I'm sorry he retired, but I'm happy for him that he got to retire. Okay? He was absolutely excellent. He listened to what I thought. He wanted to know how I was doing. It wasn't just an office visit to him. He took the time to talk to me about my MS and about how I was interacting with other people, he was checking my cognition, and I know it was all part of the exam, okay? But he made me feel like he actually gave a shit. Let me tell you, there's a lot of doctors out there that just don't give a shit. A lot. Find you a good primary care physician who gives a shit. Okay? My primary right now is a little doctor in Lancaster, and 9 times out of 10, I go see his APRN. Okay? His nurse practitioner. Because she listens, she pays attention, she cares how I'm doing, and she's willing to refer me wherever I need to go. Okay? That's what you got to have. Now, how did they treat my attacks? Well, back then, like I said, there weren't all the treatments they have now. Steroids were the #1 treatment, but not oral steroids. Okay? You can take oral steroids all the time and not get nowhere with MS. All right? Oral steroids are not a big enough dose. When I would have an attack, like when my leg went out, and I was having to walk on a cane, and I couldn't just walk. I mean, I had to. It was like I needed crutches, but I used a cane and was able to shuffle by. My doctor said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." He didn't brook no delays. He called home health, and they came to my house and gave me 1,000 milligrams of prednisone, methylprednisolone, a day for 3 days. Okay? You can either have a gram a day or 1,000 milligrams a day for 3 days, or 500 milligrams a day for 5 days. But he did the 3,000 milligrams over 3 days. Well, let me tell you, that was tough stuff. But it's still the treatment today, okay, for an attack of relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. It's still the treatment. It made me really blued out the 3 or 4 days after, the week after. I mean, I just crashed, was just dead. But instead of my leg being unusable for 3 months, it was unusable for a month. Okay? The prednisone does not stop the MS attack. It just makes it go faster till it gets done quicker. Okay? It does not stop the MS attack. It just speeds you up until it gets done quicker. Because back then there was nothing to stop an MS attack. I don't know if they've got anything today to stop an MS attack. That's why you need a good neurologist. Don't take nothing I'm giving you as medical advice. This is not medical advice. This is the advice from a person who's had MS now for 25 years. Okay? I've had MS for 25 years. I still walk unassisted. Now, I still walk unassisted. I retired because I couldn't think clearly. I still have those cog fog days, is what they call them. Cognitive fog, where you just have a problem thinking clearly. I have those every now and then. And when I do, I don't get on my tractor. I don't get in the car. Okay? I have those days from here and there. But generally, they don't come and stay. They come and go. How's your MS going to progress? I don't know. Neither does your doctor, and neither do you. Okay? You need to learn to be flexible. It's going to come, it's going to go, it's going to whoop you today and pay no attention to it tomorrow. Okay? You never know. Most MS attacks don't happen today and gone tomorrow. Okay? That's not an MS attack, that's some other kind of thing going on. May just be your nerves, may just be whatever. An MS attack is going to hit and stay with you for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and then it'll start going away. If you've got progressive MS, and they have new drug treatments for that too, go see and be certain to follow up with a neurologist. And if your neurologist don't listen to you or don't seem like they care, find another neurologist. Okay? I can't say that enough. If your neurologist doesn't give a shit, find a new one. They're not God. And if they think they are, you need another neurologist. I had a stomach doctor that really just didn't give a crap. I found one that does. Okay? They're out there. You just have to keep looking. Now, if you have MS and you need somebody to talk to, there are a lot of MS groups. There are MS groups online. There are MS groups that meet at almost every hospital called MS support groups. Okay? Find one. I never went to an MS support group. Okay? I just didn't feel like I needed it. I felt like I was one of those tough guys. But I found that talking to people about my problem helped a lot. Should you disclose it at work? Probably not. Until it becomes too evident to hide. Okay? Let me say that again. Should you disclose your MS at work? Probably not until it's just too evident to hide. Why is that? Well, the reason for that is some people will get the wrong idea about your MS, and they'll think they're doing you a favor when in reality they're discriminating against you. They don't mean to do it. They don't mean to discriminate against you, but it will happen. They will give this job to somebody else because they don't think it'll mess your health up. Okay? They're not doing it to be malicious. They're doing it because they want to get the job done, and they're afraid it will harm you. And at the same time, they're afraid that you won't be able to get the job done because of your problem. And in reality, you know what you can do. So until you have to ask for an accommodation, like I did, I got to where I had to ask for an accommodation. I had to get out of the stress or else it was going to cripple me. Okay? I had to ask for an accommodation. But until you have to ask for an accommodation, don't tell a damn soul. Okay? Don't tell nobody at work. You know, you can tell your kids, tell your wife, tell them not to tell nobody. I'm telling you, it happens. Not meant, but it's easier to not. It's easier to not be discriminated against to begin with than to fight discrimination. Okay? You can go, well, I'll get an attorney. That's all fine and good. Most employers have millions of dollars. Okay? When it comes to these discrimination suits, it's hard. It's hard to prevail. So, okay? Most employers will accommodate you. Nowadays, the Americans with Disabilities Act makes it so that they will accommodate you. But it doesn't mean that they won't change the way they react to you. Okay? So, that's just my advice. I managed, everybody at my workplace knew my problem because I had to go on steroids. Probably I had to request family medical leave 4 or 5 times over the course of my career. So they knew what was up. So that was a strike against me. But I knew that going in. And you should know it going in too. If you have to take family medical leave, they'll know. So I hope this lays some fears away. I've been at this 25 years. I still can garden. I get out and work. I still am sharp enough to do computer programming and things like that. I program in 7 dead computer languages. I raise my garden. We raise most of what we eat. I maintain a 9-acre property. Okay? So I'm not totally disabled. I'm disabled in some ways, but most ways I'm not disabled. Could I go to a job every day, a stressful job every day right now, and work? No, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. But this job I love. Doing the YouTube videos, I'm still teaching in a way. But if you need to contact somebody, call me. Message me on Facebook. Okay? You can message me on Facebook. You can email me at collegehillfarm@gmail.com. I'll respond back to you. I promise. I'll respond back to you. You know, Red Green had that thing, I'm pulling for you, we're all in this together. Well, yeah, we are all in this together. If you know my philosophy of homesteading and prepping, you'll know that I feel like we're all in this together. Now, if you like this stuff, this homesteading, dealing with your disabilities, dealing with getting old, dealing with whatever, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homesteading stuff every week, sometimes one, sometimes 5 videos. All depends on what's going on in the homestead that week. We upload our videos now on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. Okay? So some Sundays or Tuesdays or Thursdays, as things slow down on the homestead, we may not upload every day, every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. But there'll be at least one video on one of those days each week. So I hope that you can get a handle on your MS. I'll send up a prayer for you, and you send up a prayer for us, and we'll get through this together. I swear to God, you can get through this. MS is not a death sentence. For people with progressive MS, they have some fairly effective treatments out there. See a neurologist. You've got to see the doctor. And you've got to be willing to take the meds. I know sometimes the meds are tough. Sometimes the meds seem tougher than the disease. But see a doctor, see a doctor, see a doctor. Love y'all.